Okay, let's get into it. Pregnancy. That whole journey where suddenly everyone seems to be a food expert,
Right.
giving you all this advice.
Oh, absolutely. And don't forget the cravings. Sometimes really, really strange ones.
Exactly. It's this like universal thing, trying to figure out what to eat, what advice to take.
It really is. Food becomes such a huge focus. And yeah, often with very passionate but sometimes totally contradictory viewpoints flying around.
Totally. So for this deep dive, we're really going to unpack the whole world of food and pregnancy. We've got some fascinating angles here.
We do. There's a big scientific study from Japan we looked at about diet and pregnancy complications.
Yeah, and then switching gears completely, an ethnographic study from Indonesia about cultural food traditions. Really different perspective.
Plus a little news piece about special sushi in Japan for pregnant women.
Oh, yeah, that one's fun. And the Wikipedia page on morning sickness, good overview there.
And even a Reddit thread, hearing directly from people about cultural clashes over pregnancy diets.
So the plan is to really dig in, sort through the science, understand the cultural stuff, and hopefully give you some useful insights to feel, more confident making your own choices.
Exactly. Empowering you with good information.
Okay, so first up, the science bit. This major study from Japan, the Japan Environment and Children's Study, JECS, huge scale.
Yeah, massive. Over 81,000 pregnant women involved. And they were looking specifically at hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, or HDP.
Right, HDP, that affects what, 5 to 10% of pregnancies?
Somewhere in that range, yeah. Things like gestational hypertension, preeclampsia. It's a leading cause of problems for both moms and babies.
And it can have longer-term impacts too, right, like future heart health.
Exactly. There's a link to future cardiovascular risks for both, so it's a pretty serious thing to understand.
So what JECS did, which I thought was really interesting, was look at the women's diets before they even got pregnant.
The periconceptional period. They used two main ways to score diet quality.
Okay, what were they?
Well, first was the Balanced Diet Score, the BDS. That's based on Japanese dietary guidelines. That food guide spinning top.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Lots of grains, veggies, fish, meat, dairy, fruit.
Exactly, balanced stuff. And moderate snacks and alcohol. So a higher BDS meant a better, more balanced pre-pregnancy diet. Think of it as like building up nutritional reserves.
Makes sense, like prepping your body.
Sort of. Having those reserves might help handle the stresses of pregnancy better, potentially lowering the risk for things like HDP.
Okay, and the second score?
That was the DIAS score, dietary approaches to stop hypertension.
Ah, DHA, that's more familiar. Originally for blood pressure, right?
Correct. So it emphasizes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, fish, low-fat dairy.
And limits the red meat, processed stuff, sugary drinks, salt.
Precisely. So a higher DAS score meant they followed that pattern more closely before pregnancy.
Okay, so here's the kicker. The findings. What did they see?
Well, it was pretty clear. Women with a higher balanced diet score, the BDS, before pregnancy had a significantly lower risk of HDP.
How much lower?
About 17% lower risk for the group with the best diets compared to the group with the lowest quality diets.
Wow, 17%. That's quite a bit.
It is. And the DHH score, that showed an even sort of clearer dose-response relationship. Meaning for each step up in diet quality, according to the DASH score, the risk of HDP went down by about 8%.
Okay, an 8% drop per tier. That's really compelling evidence linking pre-pregnancy diet to this specific risk.
It really is.
So why? What's the thinking behind why these diets might be protective?
Well, the researchers suggest that diets high in both BDS and DH principles are typically packed with antioxidants, vitamins A, E, C, D, and minerals like zinc, calcium, iron, magnesium.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. And these nutrients are thought to help fight oxidative stress and inflammation. They also support healthy endothelial function.
Which is the lining of the blood vessels.
Exactly. Keeping that working smoothly is crucial for managing blood pressure, especially during pregnancy when the cardiovascular system is under strain.
Okay, that makes a lot of biological sense.
Yeah.
But didn't the study mention that findings haven't always been consistent? Like in other countries?
Ah, yes, that's a really important point they brought up. Studies, particularly in Western populations, have had more mixed results.
Why the difference, do they think?
Could be a few things. Different populations, genetics, overall health baselines, maybe just very different typical diets.
Okay.
And also, crucially, when they measured the diet, this JECS study really zeroed in on the preconception diet.
And why is that timing so key?
Because that period is critical for early placental development and how the mother's whole cardiovascular system starts adapting to being pregnant, getting the foundations right, basically.
Got it. So the big clinical takeaway here is focus on diet quality before you even conceive. It could be a low-cost, high-impact way to reduce risk.
Absolutely. Really powerful stuff. It broadens the focus beyond just the 9 months.
Okay, so that's a deep dive into the science side. Now,
Oh,
let's totally switch gears and talk culture.
yes. Because food during pregnancy isn't just about nutrients, is it? It's so deeply tied to tradition and belief.
Definitely. We looked at this fascinating ethnographic study from Pulau Godangkari in Indonesia.
Ah, yes. That study really highlighted how culture defines good and bad foods during pregnancy and postpartum.
And it's not just what you eat, but when and how much, based on these long-held traditions.
Exactly. And the core reason behind it all is generally this strong belief in protecting the mother and the baby, using knowledge passed down through generations, ancestral wisdom, essentially.
They had some really specific examples, like avoiding chicken liver, because it might cause dark lips or genitals in the baby.
That was one belief, yes. And others were about promoting health, like eating katuk leaves or banana blossoms to boost breast milk supply.
Right, and the timing thing. There was a ritual, the Turun Mandi.
That marked the end of the postpartum food restrictions, a signal it was okay to eat more widely again.
And quantity restrictions, too, like limiting water after birth to help the stomach shrink back.
That was another belief they observed, yes.
It just shows how food choices are woven into the fabric of culture, identity, beliefs about the body. It's way beyond just calories and vitamins.
Absolutely. Though the study did also note that sometimes, other factors come into play, like a woman's own knowledge, her health, family finances. Those can sometimes override the strict cultural rules.
Which actually leads us really nicely into that Reddit discussion we saw.
Ah, yes, the Our Baby Bumps thread. That gave such a vivid, real-world look at how these cultural food beliefs bump up against other influences, especially in multicultural settings.
Yeah, that post from the Chinese-Canadian woman, her family giving her all this advice based on Chinese culture. Avoid watermelon, bananas, lamb.
Right, citing ancestral information that, Western medicine supposedly misses.
Really captures that tension, doesn't it? Between deeply held traditions and maybe what her doctor is telling her.
Definitely. And the comment section was full of similar experiences. The no cold drinks thing came up a lot in relation to Chinese culture.
Oh yeah, loads of people mentioned that. No iced water during pregnancy. Someone even theorized it might go back to historical concerns about water safety for making ice.
That's possible. It shows how practices can start for practical reasons and then become embedded cultural rules.
We saw other examples too, right? Southeast Asian beliefs tied to traditional Chinese medicine.
Like avoiding mangoes, pineapple, limiting tofu or shellfish. Then you contrast that with, say, Nordic countries where attitudes towards things like saunas or cycling during pregnancy might be quite different.
Or even just European advice focusing heavily on toxoplasmosis and avoiding certain raw foods.
Exactly. That just highlights this potential friction between tradition and current medical advice.
And the importance of being able to navigate that respectfully, but also making your own informed choices.
Absolutely. It's about understanding where the traditions come from, valuing them, but also looking at the evidence and deciding what feels right for you.
Okay, so we've covered the science, the culture. Now let's talk about some specific concerns and some cool innovations, like raw fish.
Right. The standard advice is usually to avoid it during pregnancy.
Why exactly?
Mostly because the immune system is naturally a bit suppressed during pregnancy, making you slightly more vulnerable to foodborne bacteria like Listeria or Salmonella that could be present in raw fish.
Okay, makes sense. But then we found that news story from Japan, Kanetsu sushi. Sushi for pregnant women.
Yes, it's such a clever idea.
How does it work? Is it safe?
So what they do is start with sashimi-grade fish, which is already handled to minimize parasite risk, the highest quality stuff, but then they actually cook it.
Ah, okay. Cooked fish sushi.
Well, yes, but they cook it and then use a special rapid freezing technique. The idea is to kill any remaining bacteria while, crucially, preserving as much of the original texture and flavor as possible.
Genius. So you can still get your sushi fix? What kinds did they have?
They mentioned things like cooked salmon, sea bream, shrimp, even cooked sea urchin, apparently.
Wow. That's a great example of adapting a food tradition to meet modern health guidelines. Really creative.
It really is. It shows how culture and innovation can work together. Now, another huge topic, morning sickness.
Ugh, yes. The bane of early pregnancy for so many people. We look at the Wikipedia page for an overview.
And it's incredibly common, affects something like 70 to 80% of pregnancies.
And definitely not just in the morning, right? That name is so misleading.
Completely. Nausea, sometimes vomiting, can strike any time. The exact cause is still, a bit mysterious, but it's strongly linked to the massive hormonal shifts happening.
HCG, estrogen.
Yeah.
Those hormones going wild.
Exactly. But there's also a really interesting evolutionary theory.
Oh, what's that?
The idea is that morning sickness, particularly the strong food aversions that often come with it, might actually be a protective mechanism.
Protective? How?
Well, during the first trimester, the fetus is incredibly vulnerable, developing all its major organs. The theory suggests that nausea and aversion evolved to make pregnant individuals avoid foods that might potentially contain toxins or pathogens harmful to the developing baby.
No way. So suddenly hating coffee or wanting only plain crackers could actually be your body's ancient defense system kicking in.
That's the hypothesis, yeah. Trying to steer you towards safer, blander foods during that critical window.
That's kind of amazing, actually.
It is. And the Wikipedia entry also noted some potential dietary links diets, low in cereals but high in sugars, oils, alcohol, meat, might be associated with more morning sickness.
Interesting. And it also touched on pica, right? Craving non-food things.
Yes, briefly. Those strange cravings for things like dirt, clay, ice. Sometimes that can signal a nutritional deficiency, often iron deficiency.
Wow. The body signals are just complex during pregnancy.
Incredibly complex. It's this amazing mix of biology, culture, individual experience.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the main things you think we should take away from all this?
Well, I think there are a few key things. First, the science is increasingly pointing to how vital good nutrition is before you even conceive, especially for reducing risks like HDP.
Right, that preconception period is crucial.
Definitely. Second, we really saw the powerful influence of culture, how traditions shape food choices, driven by this deep desire to protect mother and baby.
That ancestral knowledge aspect.
Exactly. And third, it's cool to see how science and culture can actually interact and lead to innovations, like that Kanetsu sushi, adapting to modern needs and knowledge.
Yeah, it really drives home that navigating pregnancy nutrition is super personal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about finding your balance between the evidence, your cultural background, and just your own body and preferences.
Absolutely. And the key is communication. Talking openly with your doctor, your midwife, your family, asking questions, seeking out good, reliable information.
Empowering yourself to make informed choices that feel right for you.
That's the goal.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. As the world gets more connected, how do you think these things will keep evolving? The interplay between cultural food practices and new scientific discoveries about pregnancy diets.
Like, what bits of that ancestral knowledge might actually hold scientific truths we're just starting to understand? And where do we draw the line between respecting tradition and following the latest evidence? It's a lot to think about, isn't it?